everyone, this is Cocta here, and this week's video is slightly different. I will be showing you how I lay out my journal and how it helps me in many ways. I have been journaling for around 2 months now. I actually started on the 12th of October. It was recommended to me by my best friend to try and help with my mentality, as I was in a pretty bad place. If you're an artist watching this, I'm sure you understand, because we artists often beat ourselves up about not doing enough work or the quality of our work. We're all a bit guilty for that. Ever since I was recommended this, I have actually not looked back. I write in my journal every day and I really enjoy having it, so I honestly think it's helped me mentally too. I'm going to show you how I lay out my journal to manage my day. I draw out the week's worth on Monday morning. It's always how I start my week. Cup of tea and write my journal plans. So I start off by drawing out all the boxes first. Please note that you do not have to draw the boxes. You don't have to use colour. It doesn't even have to be neat if you don't want to. Go with what works for you and what you think you would be most likely to keep up with. For example, I started with bubble text for writing the days of the week, and I quickly changed that to writing normally as I got tired of writing bubble text. Feel free to copy my layout if you like the way it looks. So I go with 3 main boxes, as I like to have these 3 specific things separated. The big box is for my to-do list. I'm a girl who loves lists. My days revolve around them. The feeling of crossing off your list is just pure bliss to me. So this box is pretty big, as I usually put down a fair amount of things to do in my day, but I make sure it's not so big so that I can write too much and overwork myself. I also leave a space on the right for an added postponed section for things I didn't manage to do or finish, and then what I would need to do to finish them. I don't always write those though, because some days I get all my work done. Sometimes I also add an extra section there if I did something that wasn't on my list and I wanted to jot it down to remind myself that I did more than I anticipated and that I should be proud of that achievement. The box in the bottom left is for positives. With mental health troubles, it can be hard to think of positives some days, but I try my best to think of at least one every day. Even if it's something simple like you had a nice slice of cake or your friend texted you. If you have a terrible day, I wouldn't record it in your journal, just to try to not remember the bad things on the bad days. The weekend box I do differently. To me, my weekend is time away from my business and work. I don't want to plan out my whole week and go by a list for the whole thing, so my weekend is my downtime. If I want to draw on the weekend, I will draw. If I want to play games, I'll do that, but it's important to take time for yourself, so I leave these boxes blank and fill them in on what I did on the actual day. So the last box is for priorities. Some days I put down a few things to do, but only some or one of the things are actually important enough to have to be done on that day. I usually put at least one thing in the priorities box, just to make sure I am somewhat productive in the day. I personally get really stressed at the thought of not being productive, but if you're not like that, then it doesn't really matter. That's just how I feel personally. But therefore, if you don't complete your whole list, but you have done your priorities, that's then a positive. Another thing to note, I have also drawn what resembles cups. They're not very detailed, but for me this is my record of how much water I drink. I am terrible at remembering to drink water. I love my hot drinks, and I will completely neglect water if I don't record it, so that's a personal choice for me. If you find you're the same, it might be worth noting a water section in your journal too. Don't forget to stay hydrated. The last part I note down for the week is the post section. This is where I plan my posts for social media like Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. I like to have a plan so my posts are coordinated. I have, however, currently come away from Instagram for this week though, so it's irrelevant to this week's journal entry. I do recommend taking breaks from social media if you can. So that's the basics for my week in my journal. As it's the start of a new month, however, I'll show you what I do to prepare for the month as well. November ended on a Monday, so I drew the December page after that week. On the December page, I drew out the basic calendar, wrote the important dates of the month, which actually was only Christmas and New Year's for me, and make a monthly to-dos box. So the next page was something I added in this month as I figured it would be useful to me. If you're a business and seller like me, it would be handy to track your earnings somewhere. I usually have a separate notebook for these things, but I decided it might be easier tracking them by the months through my journal. Whenever I make a sale, I would jot down how much it was in this month's earnings so I can keep on top of it, which will then make it easier for you in the future when filling out your tax forms. Finally, the other two pages are somewhat connected and they're dedicated to spending. This can help you track what you spend if you're on a budget or if you need records of what you spend for your business. I have one page dedicated to things I want, one page dedicated to things I need. At the top I jot down some items I know I want to buy in the month, for example if I need fabrics and materials. As another example, I jotted down Christmas presents in the wants section for this month, as the needs section is anything for Clocked Creations as a business. It may seem silly if I need deodorant and have to put it in the want section, but that's what I do, I guess. You don't need to add these sections if you don't want to, they're just useful for me. So the monthly to-dos box is like the priorities box. I put down the most important things that I would like to get done. You can choose to put a checkbox next to them or you can choose to highlight them. Before I started journaling, I had this whiteboard, which I still use to jot down my priorities of the week, but in all honesty, I hardly look at it. It was all I had to go by for my week, and I'd look at the things that I would put to do and try and do them. I would never remember what I did, I'd never remember what needed to be finished and what I had started, etc. So ticking things off a list as you go makes you feel a bit more proud that you've actually done something with your day, even if it is small, as compared to if I'd have done a lot of things in a day but hadn't wrote the record of it. I have had and still get days where I have little to no energy to do anything, and that's okay. Of course I still have bad days, but if I have done one of my priorities, that's a win to me, and so I don't put so much pressure on myself to do everything like what I did when I had just written it all on the whiteboard. I would beat myself up a lot and tell myself I was useless for working slowly, but this happens a lot less now because I can see what I've actually done in my journal. Also, writing positives for me forces me to think about all the good things that happened in the day, and that can make me feel happier in itself. Some things that you weren't even aware that made you feel happy or was a positive can sometimes be there when you really sit and think about the good things. If I get bad anxiety days, I can write in my positive sections that I thought through it, or that I still managed to work even when I had these bad anxiety thoughts. If I stopped working because of anxiety, the positive for me is that I took some self-care. Basically, my journal gives me something to do so I don't get lost in my own head, and I don't try and manage everything just in my head. And more than anything, I actually find it really fun to do. If you find your journal stressful to you, or if you start doing a journal and you find it stressful, please don't continue with it. There is no need to put this stress on yourself. It might be good for you to start with small to-do lists, and then there's not so much pressure on you. If you get all the things done that you wanted, you then have free time and you can do whatever you want with the rest of the day, and I absolutely love it when that happens on those days. There is absolutely no pressure with the things you write, and you can change things as much as you want, or decide to not do things if you cannot be bothered, which I definitely do. Sometimes I even swap over the day's tasks sometimes if it's convenient to me. I actually did that with this week's entry after I'd done it, so Tuesday and Wednesday I think I swapped around. I even record little chore things like changing my bedding, as I absolutely hate doing that, and I record it as a positive because I was probably putting off, so yay, it's done now. So yeah, that is how I journal, and that is my advice to you to how to stay productive. The way I journal is obviously my own method and the way that works for me. You don't have to copy what I do, but feel free to if you think it would help you. Obviously it's not for everyone. I really didn't think that it would be for me. I felt like I would get bored of writing it all out every week and that I would just stop, but I haven't. I literally rely on it and go by it every day. I love my journal. You don't need a fancy notebook. Mine is a real cheap one, and you can buy ones with the list sections already written out if you prefer, if you don't want to write out all the boxes, draw out all the boxes like I do. So thank you all so much for watching. I really hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, be sure to drop me a like and let me know. Don't forget to hit the bell to keep up to date with my arts and crafts videos, and I'll see you all next time.